Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining another episode of 55 and 5, where we talk about the 1955 Parkhurst Wrestling card set, going one by one through all 121 cards. I'm Ian Riccaboni, Cary Silkin. Cary, we're on episode 23, and we've had some more notable names. It feels like we're building up to someone big, maybe.
Okay. Who was our last ones?
Gino Garibaldi.
And we had Sonny Warcloud.
And before that, Johnny Rougeau.
Right.
So we're getting some names that we're more familiar with.
He's giving me some grace, folks.
I got to admit, it's like Alex Trebek. Other than a handful of names, I don't know very many. I rely on some of the research that we do to make sure we give you the answers. And that's the important thing about this. We're just trying to get out the names of the wrestlers that we're talking about to keep some of their memories alive. This man, unfortunately, was one of the biggest stars in the world, but I feel like his name has kind of slipped off the radar. And so Cary and I could talk a lot. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes to make sure this is a 5-minute history lesson. I'm going to show this card to the crowd. It is my favorite card in the set. I know I say I like a lot of cards. This is my favorite. Cary, you have 5 minutes. Please feel free to use them. Please tell us about the great Pat O'Connor.
Well, one of the great NWA champions. Mm-hmm. Pat O'Connor was from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And you've got the safety net there. I would guess he started wrestling in the late 30s or maybe the early 40s. Am I wrong?
It was actually 1950. He was kind of a late bloomer. Yeah, because you're right on the age. He was 26 when he started. So, yeah, he probably could have started in the 40s, but it was 1950.
He was a name I would always see in the wrestling magazines. And in the earliest, reading in the wrestling magazines that he was an NWA champion, and I think his most famous match, and thank God there's so much stuff, whether it's music, whether it's sports, football, baseball, swimming and attack, and wrestling, that's been lost. It was copied over, but great match with Pat O'Connor and Buddy Rogers.
Yeah.
And in Comiskey Park, where the Chicago White Sox play, for the NWA title. 2 out of 3 falls?
2 out of 3 falls, yeah.
With manager manager Bobby Davis.
Bobby Davis leads his man to the title. And we go back to another 55 and 5 episode. We talked about the propensity of the finish where somebody gets hit in the groin. That's how the third fall ends, and Buddy Rogers wins the title.
Yeah, and after this, Pat O'Connor remained in wrestling. I believe he sort of homesteaded in the St. Louis
You're absolutely
area,
right.
Kansas City, St. Louis.
St. Louis for the most part from 64 to 82. And he had some tours of All Japan. He fought Giant Baba. He fought Jumbo Tsuruta. Sometimes Chicago, Minneapolis, Omaha. But he was in St. Louis for most of the rest of his career.
I may be dead wrong on this, but he might have been NWA president at one time, or maybe Sam Munchnick was, but he was certainly a high-ranking and highly accredited member when it came to decision-making with NWA titles and whatnot.
There's the whisper that he, along with Sam Munchnick, were a driving force among crowning some of the champions like Jack Briscoe, like Ric Flair. And
he was a wrestler's wrestler.
He was. Great amateur background. Great draw, too. He and Buddy Rogers had the biggest gate in wrestling history until the big event in Toronto, Ontario in 1986. So that Comiskey Park match, the match of the century, as it was called.
So that held up for 25 years.
Held up for 25 years.
Pretty amazing.
One of the biggest, the biggest gate.
Because think of the dollar amounts of the tickets.
Right.
And for 25 years, a sold-out Madison Square Garden in 1979 was, a substantial amount of money. So quite a record to hold.
Absolutely. And what was interesting about his reign, he defeated Dick Hutton on January the 9th, 1959. We talked about schisms before. Fred Kohler was one of the men making some of the decisions for the NWA at the time. He wanted to use O'Connor a lot. He wanted to use him in Chicago. He tried to make him put up this $10,000 bond or appearance fee. He tried to make O'Connor put up the money so that he would.
Was that to keep the belt?
Kind of. He had to pay this fee so that he had the privilege of wrestling in Chicago.
Really?
Eventually, they negotiated it down. He draws big houses against. We talked about Buddy, but before that, huge house against Bruno, huge house against Johnny Valentine. So he turns a kind of lemons into lemonade and makes Chicago an area where he draws quite well.
You would think Fred Kohler would
be paying him. Right. Yeah. Not only that, he returned to Madison Square Garden as a fan favorite, sort of in this period. He defended the title against Hans Schmidt, against Karl von Hess. And really, I mean, he's just a big-time draw, big-time moneymaker. Eventually gets to All Japan as a favorite there, even though he's a foreign wrestler, taking on the biggest names in All Japan history, Jumbo Tsuruta and Giant Baba. So a guy that did it for, 3+ decades. I don't
want to go off wrestler here, but what was the Japanese, on one of our last rounds of 55 and 5, there was the guy that went to Japan in 54. And
Lou Newman. Yeah.
Right. And I said that might have been the first tour, but Dave Meltzer, who's been following this, chimed in that the American wrestlers started going over to Japan in 51.
Right.
Which is 6 years after the war, which,
pretty early. A lot of open wounds still. I bet.
Right. So, good stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff. Pat O'Connor, all-time legend. Not enough people remember O'Connor. Do you know what his last match was as we hit the 5-minute mark here?
I'm going to guess it was in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Florida?
Yeah. This is going to blow your mind.
Go ahead.
A Legends Battle Royal at the Nassau Coliseum.
Really?
That the very one that Randy Savage, till his dying day, allegedly cited as the reason he had beef with Vince McMahon was that they wouldn't put Angelo Poffo in it, and he was in the Legends Battle Royal.
I should have known that. What was that, like 86 or 7?
87. And, I mean, Pat O'Connor's not a name you associate with the WWF. So,
well, Vince Sr. was gone by that time, but I guess Vince Jr. Was paying homage and paying tribute to him, and it was cool they did that.
A lot of great names in that Battle Royal, and Pat O'Connor, one of the greatest NWA World's Heavyweight Champions of all time, as in one of the highest drawing per match wrestlers that there's been with that title. So, fun episode. I told you you'd get this. I told you we were building up to something. We're building up to something here. The great Pat O'Connor, and another episode of 55-5. Cary, we're under 100 to go. Can you feel it?
I'm enjoying them.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun, and we're enjoying bringing them to you. We hope you're enjoying these 5-minute history lessons. If you want more of Cary and I, check out Last Stop Penn Station wherever you get podcasts. Please check out BissonCreative.com for all of your web and creative needs. And don't forget to check out on ad-free shows the Poster of the Week presented by Last Stop Penn Station. I'd like to thank Conrad for hooking that up over there. So for Cary, for AJ, producer, I'm Ian Riccaboni. Happy wrestling, everybody. We'll see you for episode 24.